welcome to another episode of the Inner Edison Podcast. I'm your host, Ed Parcaut, and today we have Chris Brown. He's an entrepreneur with a diverse business background. He's from software development to e-commerce to staffing. We're going to dive into the lessons learned from business failures, the art of picking the right partners, and why hiring remote teams, especially from Latin America, can give your company an edge. Let's get right to the show. Chris Brown, thank you so much for coming on the Inner Edison Podcast. I appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Ed.
Oh, my pleasure. All right, Chris, we started talking like we always do, and we have more of a conversation, but I want to bring it into the podcast. So, name of the company?
No, we're Wow Remote Team.
Okay, I just want to make sure that my assistant wrote it right. I use a lot of chat GPT prompts. Mm-hmm. And I have one created for my podcast. And one time I did one and it grabbed the wrong person. Had the same name from somebody. Yeah, it was a veteran, but and I grabbed another veteran with the same name, also added some extra stuff. And he's like, that wasn't me. And so you never know what you're going to get when you use AI to help you out. And people go, do you really use it for the show? I go, no, but occasionally I look over to see if there's a question I'd like to ask or something, but 9 times out of 10, I don't. It's just because I've been doing this for a while with radio. All right. So what got you into, have you always been an entrepreneur? Was it part of your family was entrepreneurs?
Yeah, my whole family is. My parents, had real estate company, and now they just do investment and they own property and stuff. And it's kind of become a retirement for them in that realm. But they were, real estate brokers, and so I grew up, just fixing houses and working on property and building business. And then, I'm 40. So kind of as the internet came along to fruition in the late 90s there, I was coming of age of, looking for ways to make money and working with my family to sell things on eBay and, do all kinds of random stuff. And it's always been kind of a just part of life. I went to university and came out with a degree and went into software development and did the normal 9 to 5 writing software for a little while, but it was never a good catch for me. It was never a good fit for me. So ended up working with my brother and building an insurance agency, and we ended up selling that and then building some other companies and doing all kinds of things. I've been involved in so many different things at this point that it's kind of wild. Lots of just the whole thing, right? Because as you go building businesses and as you go working on your own and on the internet, you have to learn kind of how to do everything. And that makes you have a wide portfolio of available skills. So it's not just, I'm a software developer, so I'm going to go into tech. And that's kind of where it went. And I ended up being the tech guy in a lot of the companies that we worked in. But, we've done marketing consulting. We've run agencies of different kinds. We had a Web3 company back when blockchain was really, getting its legs in like the mid 2010s, like 2015, 2016 area. Just such a wide array of things. I think our biggest hits have been, e-commerce and then moving over into staffing and getting into that world.
Why the big push into staffing? I mean, because before I asked you a question, I was telling you about how Inner Edison is your greatest accomplishments come from your greatest defeats, and you started to talk about failure. I could have swore that's what you were starting to do, and I'm like, let's get this on the show. But so, I mean, building businesses, we all have failures, and we learn from them to grow into the next business or whatever we try to do. But even myself, I've been in the mortgage industry for a very long time, but I've had multiple companies during that period of time with partners and with, not partners. And it, you learn it's very difficult to have the perfect partner. And I've had shows on how to pick the right partner, but I do better by myself, where some people do better with partners.
Yeah. I think I do better with a partner in general. I'm the one on the podcast here, but I'm not the most outgoing social person in the world. I generally do better with a partner who is really social, good at networking, good at getting ideas and getting traction on them, and like getting traction with a market or with your audience, and then kind of rolling it out from there and helping them build into those things. So having partners is really important, and part of my failures has been picking bad partners. I think that's part of how we learn in life, though. I really don't think that's specific to business. I think that's a lesson I've learned in every aspect of my life. If you have good people around you, those people will help lift you up and you'll help lift them up. But if you're picking bad partners in business or in romance or in college classes, like it's never going to go well for you. And it's a hard skill to learn. I don't know. Some people are adept at it naturally, maybe, and some people get trained that by their family. And, I've had to take the harder road of finding that, finding good partners and finding out how to, I don't know, measure people. That doesn't sound like a great way to put it, but identify good traits in partners and the kind of partner that resonates with me and with my style and with my personality.
Yeah. Before you keep going on that, Chris, one of the things I try to explain to people, I've been on radio since 2018. And one of the producers always tells you when you ask them a question, have them answer within 1 minute, max 3 minutes, so that way you can have a conversational thing going on. You did pretty well there. I just wanted to stop before you get going, because you talked about you need to know that in your personal life and in your business life how to pick a partner. And I always tell people in your personal life, you have to make a list of what you want in somebody. And not what you don't want, but what you want. And then be okay with one or two things that doesn't match. I had a list this last marriage that I'm still in 20 years. And my wife had a list. The only thing she wasn't on my list, and I had things all the way down to wanting her to have a degree, a professional, told her to industry. I mean, it was a long list. She's not 5'9". She's 5'4". I gave up. I always wanted somebody tall. I'm 6'2". I wanted a tall person finally.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't happen. The only thing I wasn't on her list was a fireman. She wanted me gone every other night, she thought. But when you're with somebody that you really care about, you want to spend your time with them. So what I'm getting at is the same thing. In your business partner, you need to figure out what you're good at and have a business partner who handles the stuff that you're not good at. You don't want two of you. You want somebody completely opposite of you. Right?
Yeah, maybe not opposite. You want someone complementary.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. You want someone who helps lift you up. You want someone who has strengths where you might have weaknesses, or, complementary strengths. You want someone who brings something to the table with you, not just, in and of themselves, of course. You need to bring value yourself, and so does the other person. And of course, that's always important. But, going back to the idea of what is the failure and how does that get you to where you're at currently? Staffing's always a problem. Staffing's always hard. Finding good employees is hard. Finding good people is hard. Recruiting is hard. And in these previous businesses, so the business before this was doing e-commerce, doing medical and dental supplies, which went absolutely crazy during COVID, of course, because we had medical supplies and everybody needed medical supplies. So that went absolutely wild, and having to staff that on short notice was a very hard thing to do. And we ended up, finding lots of people through different places and agencies and finding different routes, and just sometimes they were good, sometimes they're, it's the common business problem of finding good employees. And yeah, people in the US are expensive. You get really good talent. You find really good people. I'm here, you're here. There's great people here, but there's a whole other world out there of available talent, as long as you're willing to go look for them and go find them. And, we've found that in Latin America, and we ended up staffing our previous company through Latin America. And that's worked out really well for us. But the big failure point back there, to go back to that, was, not knowing how to manage those people and not knowing how to cut people when it was time to let people go. And that was a really hard lesson. And getting to that point really took a lot. It took destroying a business, honestly, to learn the lesson and learn how to do that, and how to, learn when to cut your losses before you get to the point of destroying a business over them.
Because I know a lot of business owners, when they bring on staff, bring them on as them. Like they're responsible for them, and they look at it, and I think that's a detriment and a positive at the same time. But you have to do what's best for the business. You can't always do what's best for your employees. And I think a lot of business owners are not a business owner. They want to be not a friend, but be connected with their employees because they want to take care of them. And I get that, but you sometimes have to do what's best for the company. Otherwise, you won't have the company.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain point where, and this is going to sound a little harsh, and I don't know, maybe I'm jaded at this point for having done it for a long time. But there's a certain point where you have to realize that hiring people is an investment in your business, and you have to find good investments, and you have to find good ways to deploy capital. And part of deploying capital is finding good people and deploying capital into those people. That includes their salary, that includes their benefits, their bonuses, but it also includes whatever budget you give them for whatever project they're on. That's all deployed capital. And when you let somebody go, you're not just cutting their benefits and their salary and stuff, but you're also cutting whatever that budget was that they were working with, that they were spending. That may have gone somewhere else, right? It depends on your finances, your accounting, and everything. But the whole thing is an investment package into your company. And when we start to look at it that way, it removes a little bit of that human piece, right? Because especially people that are in the 5 to 15 to 20 kind of person employee range, they're still looking at people, like you said, like they're trying to hire people that are going to be their friends. They're really trying to, and we want to be good to our people. It's always a basis. You want to be great to the people that are with you and that are working with you, but they're not here to be your friend. And if you're paying them a salary, you can't continue to do that just because of the goodness of your heart when your business is failing. If the business fails, they're not going to get a salary anyway, so it doesn't work out. And I've had to learn that the hard way. Of course, I've had to go down that road of keeping someone far longer than we should have because they were great at their job. They were doing amazing work. They were, a great person and a great person to hang out with and a great person to work with. So you want to keep that going, but it's really detrimental to the thing that you need to keep going, which is the business. And there's a balancing act there, right? And you gotta find that point where it works for everybody. And it's a hard decision to make when you have to let people go. But if you don't, like, as I know well, if you don't, then you're going to lose the company.
Yeah. I mean, your family was in real estate. That's the one, industry, same with mortgage, what I own, that has its, seasons. And there's some times like nobody thought we'd go at 5% interest rates in the last 2 years, like we did. I knew we were going to have inflation. I just didn't think it was going to get that bad as it did. And you hold on to people longer thinking, okay, it's, historically you're talking 18 months, 2 years. Right. And it's, we had some, everybody's like, but you did so well in the pandemic. You don't understand. In the first 3 to 4 months, we didn't make any money. And then you staff up and then you make your money at the last 6 months of it when it's dying, because that's when you've already paid for your staff and the new equipment and the new everything. And then you don't need them. Man, what do you do at that point? And that's the cycle that we go through when you're in a refinance world and a purchase world. Because if you look at the purchases during that period of time, they were not any greater than any other time. It was so competitive and so crazy, and people were overpaying, and there was a lot of people looking, but not only one person per house could, get that house. And I'm talking from California. I don't know where you're located at, but, it was a good time, but it's also, then we had the downtime, and then we've had it since 2022 when things changed, and now we're in 25. And has it gotten better? No, inventory's finally growing, but nowhere close to where we needed to be. In interest rates, no, we're still in the 7s. So
yeah, no,
what I'm looking at is you can't, my industry, to have the right amount of people all the time is very difficult, is what I was trying to get. So I'm agreeing with what you were saying, how you have to cut whether you want to, but sometimes you're like, wait, if I cut too soon, I need them to come back and they won't be there. Then I have to train them again. So go ahead.
Yeah. And that's just part of the overall calculus, right? I mean, training is not easy. It's expensive. It's expensive because, again, it's not just money we're putting on the table. It's our time. And if you have to train somebody, how much of your time did you take in order to train that person? And if you're bringing someone back in who you previously had to let go, how much more does that person now cost? Those are all things we have to think about as we make each of these decisions. And it's not like, you don't know. You have no idea. This is all future that we're thinking about. So you're just kind of doing your best and hoping you can find the way forward that works for as many people as possible.
And that's why companies with things that you can get with residual income and have additional, that grows over time, or with what you do, is kind of a better model, is what I'm seeing. I mean, and I was talking to somebody else, because a lot of people they make so much money in my industry, but then they go through dry times and they're like, okay, I'm tired of this. I want steadier years. And is there a better way to do it? And I think that has to do with what you do, and we'll get into it. It was hiring with remote teams, hiring people through VAs. You have them now if you need them, and then if you don't need them, that's okay. Then you can get them back. And a lot of I don't know if that's what your company does, but they're trained to do with what they do. Myself, I have a pod that I use to send stuff through that I need to get done, and for me, and I use them a lot. And until I had that pod, and I'm in California, so a contract person in California is an employee.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, and it's just so expensive.
Yeah, and then the things that they get away with, it's just ridiculous. I'm sorry, it's just and that's like I can't hire a contract processor or contract anything in California. They have to be out of state.
Mm-hmm.
And then that means people who live in California can't get picked up because they have to be an employee and nobody wants to pick them up. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of companies that hire employees, but it's just, I find it's so much better to use contract in my industry for what I do, because I don't know if I'm going to have the same thing there in 6 months from now.
Yeah. And I mean, we have multiple clients that are in the mortgage industry and in finance in general. And there's a lot of transaction coordinator type of positions that are, we have a company right now that's hiring, they're in Northern California. They're just outside Berkeley. And yeah, they're hiring transaction coordinators and loan processors, and it saves them so much money and so much headache for, a position that it's essentially not tenable for them to hire in California for, because it just doesn't work. And then I see a lot of that out of New York as well. People come in to say, I can't hire people here to do this for the amount of money that I can pay for somebody to do it. It's not worth the amount of money for somebody local to do this job. It just doesn't work for me. And, part of that is a growing pain of the smaller companies that, we'll work with people from, again, 5 to 20 employee range. That's kind of the smaller end there. And you get a lot of those kind of positions that somebody has a task that they're doing or a task that their right hand is doing, and they wish there was another person who was able to work on that task so that they or their right hand could grow into something better. Right? There's always, again, it's always an investment. It's always, what could I be doing with my time if I had somebody to do this process? And if you go look for somebody in California to do that process and you go, oh, well, that's $40, $50, $60 an hour for something that I can't pay that much for something to do that on a regular basis. So they end up on the phone with me or somebody like me, talking about how much does this cost if I hire somebody in Latin America, and what does that contract terms look like, and what does that setup look like, and how do I make sure that they know how to do what they're doing, and how do I make sure that their English is good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
How we protect the social security numbers and everything else in a file.
Mm-hmm, yeah. How do I? Yeah.
There's always that side of it too. Oh, it's out of country. It's out of this. That there. Different things that can come up, but I mean, when I first came from San Diego to Northern California, I mean, I was paying receptionists that were horrible down there. This is back in 2004. Like more than $3,000 a month just to answer phones, and they were horrible. I came up here to Northern California, I was paying $1,500 to do the thing, because one was in San Diego and one was in where I'm in Central Valley. But what I'm getting at is that now I don't need a receptionist. We don't need certain things anymore. I don't need a full processor like we used to. Everything's so automated. Everything's so fast. And there's different companies out there like UWM who has people inside doing some of the jobs that we normally would pay a processor to do, to where we just need, like you said, what most people call in real estate a transaction coordinator. That's all we really need. We need a loan officer assistant. We don't really need a processor anymore. We just need somebody, when they request a document, can you just upload the document? Because I explain to people, when I talk to a client, they're giving me the stuff already. If I have to then give it to somebody else, why don't I just go boom, 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 and drop it in the folder that's up to the lender, instead of just dropping it into our folder?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you teach it, and it's like, okay, I can do 30 loans a month, and it's not killing me where I had to have 5 people for that before.
Yeah. And you see a lot of people getting more like an assistant position now, where it's more like follow-up, like make sure that everybody's on the ball, make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, make sure we have the documents that we actually need, and go look at every document and make sure it's the right thing before the lender calls me and says, hey, you were missing page 17 or whatever. I don't know your business specifically.
No, but basically the 4th page of the bank statement that's blank.
Yeah,
because it's says 4, 3 of 4. Well, where's 4 of 4? It was blank. Don't care. We need it.
We need it. It says 3 of 4, I think. Yeah,
that's right. And I think a lot of it has to do with, how you set things up from the beginning in your systems and everything. But I agree. Using contract is where I see the future is, just because it's, especially with what podcasting and other stuff, that video editing, all the other stuff, it's just so much easier and better. I had a person on staff full time doing it, and that was expensive.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Especially video editors, graphic editors, especially somebody who's going to be on the ball full time, good at that stuff. Like anybody in the US, and I'm biased, of course. I hire people remotely out of Latin America. My entire team is in Latin America. There's 2 of us here in the United States, and that's me and my CEO, the founder. Like everybody else is in Latin America, and it works very well for us, and it works well for our clients, of course, so they wouldn't continue to be my client.
How did you find them in Latin America to start to do this?
So my CEO, Julie, is from Bogota, Colombia. So she ended up in this whole world where somebody came to her and said, her brother-in-law came to her and was saying, I'm hiring software developers. I know you're from Colombia. I know you have this background. She did education administration in Colombia. She was kind of high up there. And he came to her and was like, do you know anybody? Do you know how to get into this world? Because the prices for US developers are completely insane. And she's like, yeah, sure, I can search my network, essentially, go post about it on my Facebook and see if any of my friends from college are available. And it landed. It turned into a thing. They hired the guy, and that turned into a couple positions, which turned into a small business, which turned into literally everything. So it kind of took a turn there, because it became more of like a bespoke recruiting and staffing firm than your normal kind of managed outsource. Like, we have virtual assistants, they know how to work Excel and Google Drive or whatever, and we'll drop them into your business. But more of a, we'll go find good people. We have a recruiting team, and their whole job is to pre-vet, pre-interview people and talk to them and see how they are as a candidate. Would they be a good fit for a job like this? Would they be a good fit for a remote position? Are they well skilled at what they're doing? Is their English good enough to work with US companies? And then take that and look at it in a more in-depth manner and say, are they a good fit for this company? Are they a good cultural fit? Do they need to take a culture index study? Do they need to do, certain types of work studies to see if they have the skill match? Do they need to take an English test because they need to be on the phone all day? And go find people that are really a good match for somebody and really that work well with somebody in their organization. So that's all to say that really kind of ended up setting us apart a bit from your typical VA system, where, you call them and you say, hey, I need somebody to do, here's my SOP. I want them to do this exact process every single day. And you kind of drop it at them, and they put someone in that role, and then you have a manager above them. When we're doing like contract staffing, where we find the person that's really a good fit for you, and then you interview them and you go through the process and make sure that they're really someone who you want to work with. You want them on your team.
And what do these people do? All different things. I mean, give me an example.
Anything and everything. We do,
do they do editing for podcasting and that kind of stuff? Or are they all like an assistant? Okay. So you have everything.
Yeah, so it's kind of we became a bespoke staffing recruiter. We're a recruiting company that does contract staffing. So we can go find any profile that's out there and find a great fit for it. So we end up doing quite a bit of assistance. We do lots of data entry kind of positions, and those will run as a team, and they'll take on data entry stuff, and they'll run whatever needs to be done there. But we do tons of stuff that's like, very specific sort of ads people, or, social media managers, or even up to, managers. We've done executive level positions. We've placed a C-level before, as a contract role. It's really a bespoke recruiting service, because we have a team of recruiters in Latin America, and their full-time job is to go out and talk to potential candidates and see if they're a good fit for roles that we have open and roles that we generally are going to be seeing. Lots of marketing positions, lots of, design positions, lots of coordination kind of positions, lots of management, team managers. Anybody with remote teams generally is going to have project managers. Those project managers are going to be remote. Lots of those kind of positions. So it's become a motion where it's really bespoke. I talk to somebody like you on the phone and get an idea of what it is you're looking for, not just at a job description, but really what works well with you? What kind of person do you like to work with? What have you seen success with previously? And then we use that and go find people who we think are a good match with that. And then we bring them to you and you interview them with us. And then we see if they're a good fit. And if they're not, we go, update our process.
And what's the prices? I know it's all depends on the job, but on average, compared to you.
Average, you're going to save 30 to 40% over US prices all in. Our billing model is really simple. It's an hourly basis model. Even though we're looking to place long-term full-time commitments. That's our bread and butter. But it's billed on an hourly basis. So, there's no additional fees. There's no upfront fee. There's no recruiting fee. There's nothing. If I don't find a great candidate for you, you don't pay me. And if I do find a great candidate for you, the billing model is very clear. You know exactly how much you're going to pay because it's on every candidate profile is the hourly rate. And all you pay is the amount of hours that they work for you times that rate. There's literally no other fees or no other costs or no other built-ins. And then the contracts themselves are immediate termination if you need. So there's no ongoing placement. We're looking for long-term full-time commitment. That's our bread and butter. But I don't want to force anybody into that. Like if it's not a good person for you, if it's not a good fit, as we were talking about at the beginning, the biggest problem is for me was learning how to let people go when I needed to let them go. Like we really sunk a business because we weren't able to do that in a timely fashion. That and getting rid of a warehouse, but two for a problem. So being simple, being clear about that and letting people know, hey, I'm not trapping you into this. Like there's no ongoing commitment. If it doesn't work for you at any point, please tell me, let's stop. I don't want you to be my client if this doesn't work for you anymore. The whole point of everything we're doing is to save businesses money and help them grow and make more money. And there's additional pieces to that, but I think that's the core of what US people need to hear about it or want to hear about it,
And they're contracts, so they're not employees of your company. So
yeah. So generally they're contractors.
Pay your company, we pay you. Okay.
Yeah. So it's, contracting through a US company, you get invoiced from us bi-weekly or monthly or whatever works for you. And we're a US company, so it's US to US. And then we handle all the contracts. So we're contracting the people. We're handling, negotiations with them to make sure that they're fully covered so that their benefits and taxes at home or whatever are covered, at whatever level they need to be covered at to make it a great offer for them. And, that's the other half of this thing, of course, is that we're hiring people who want a better position in life. We're giving people the opportunity to work remotely and have, a salary in US dollars, work for a US company, work in English, improve their English skills every day that they get to talk with you and me. So it's a huge benefit for the people down there because the world's different, right? We have Starlink. You can work from literally anywhere. I have Starlink on top of my RV. I work from the forest during the summer. Like it doesn't matter where you are anymore. I was in Colombia last year and I had Starlink on the roof and I worked my normal all day, every day, like I always do. And it made no difference where I was, so you can hire people that live in little towns now and they're very well educated. They went to school at the big university in the big city and then came home to live with their family and do that. And now they can make good money living a great life in a little town. They don't have to be in the big city. They get to live with their family. They get to have a great life. And, it's such a different world. And we're just on the cusp of how this whole thing ends up working for everybody.
Chris, how do people find you?
Website, wowremoteteams.com. There's always LinkedIn. You can find me, Chris Brown, Wow Remote Teams. There's a lot of Chris Browns, so have fun with that one.
Yeah, there was a BET thing came up at the same time when I was doing you. That Chris Brown.
Yeah, it's been a couple decades of my life of hearing that every so often now. Yeah.
All right, so so basically, if somebody wants to know the pricing, they have to talk to you and you find out what they're looking for, and then you kind of tell them what that number is going to be.
That's the best way. I mean, again, it's going to be 30 or 40% cheaper than most US positions. So you can just take that as a baseline. Whatever it is you're looking for, take 30% off of it, and then you could probably call me, and that's probably where the number is going to be or better. But again, there's no upfront cost, there's no upfront fee, and there's no long-term commitment. So at the end of the day, you can just call me and tell me what you're looking for, and I'm happy to have my team send you profiles. And if it works for you, it works for you. And if it doesn't, it's okay.
All right, Chris, is there anything I didn't ask you that I should ask you?
Oh,
This
that's
is
a
what
good
you do all
question.
day. I don't. So
Yeah, I mean, there's always, the question of like, what are the pitfalls? How do people fail? Like where do people struggle? And I think if I'm going to answer my own question there, the biggest struggle is not being clear in expectations and understanding what it is the process that you need to do. If you've never sold a product and you call me and want a sales guy for your product, it's not going to work. It doesn't matter where that sales guy comes from. He doesn't own your product. He's not going to be able to sell it. That's 99% true, right? There's always that 1% that you'll find a guy that can do an amazing job, whatever it is you need. But being clear in expectations, being clear in your process, and knowing what it is that you need and what you need done and how your business works is absolutely crucial to this working. And this being employment contracting, especially remote positions, being very clear on expectations is just crucial.
oh, totally is. I mean, when I started working with my pod and working with that, it's like you have to explain it what exactly you want all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Don't leave anything open for interpretation at all. And you need a SOP. You need to tell them exactly how you want it. And it's just with anybody. You should be dealing with your employees also. I mean, if you have employees, what are you expecting from your people? If you're not giving them good communication, then don't complain about what you get when you get out of it.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to know what you want, expectations and clarity, clear communications. And it's hard. It's really hard. It's hard in every aspect of life. Yeah.
Yeah. Same with your personal life. You got to tell them what you
Yeah. Same with marriage.
That's right.
It's a lot of work to communicate clearly.
That's right. So did you hear what I say? You got to verify. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate having you today.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks for having me on, Ed. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Inner Edison Podcast. I want to thank Chris Brown for coming by and talking about the world of entrepreneurship, the challenges of finding great business partners, and the evolving landscape of remote staffing. If you're curious about leveraging global talent or want to connect further, check out wowremoteteams.com. Until next time, keep learning and stay inspired.